Hello, Radio Land. Welcome to Anchor's 365, an intellectual radio show. Our sponsor for these shows, as always, is Martin Casey, the president and CEO of My Fuller Beauty Incorporated. Without him, there will be no Dreammaker 365 talk show. So we're glad that you tuned in with us on tonight. Well, this is Black History Month again. This is our second show of 4. And you might be asking the question, why Dreammakers 365? Well, as I often say, 3 reasons. We want to give a voice to the voiceless. Number 2, we want to discuss African American or Black American history 365 days a year to our children and to the listening audience, whoever they are. Lastly, we want to help to inspire, to save the lives of people through these shows by offering them hope in Jesus Christ, which is very important. Well, tonight for our topic, we will look at Black history museums and the importance of them in order to teach America about the contributions of so many Black or African Americans. Again, we're going to look at Black history museums, something in our memory. So joining me tonight is going to be one of the best educators in America on this subject of museums and artifacts and exhibits. It's going to be the Dr. Leonard Porter, and I will introduce him later in the show. But first up, our Black History Person of the Week is Mr. James Cameron, founder of the Black Holocaust Museum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've heard so much, Brother Earl, about the Holocaust of the Jewish people, rightfully so. But we barely hear about the Holocaust of Black Americans who gave their lives, who died, many of them who died before they even got on American soil. Nothing wrong with remembering Black history. There's nothing anti-Semitic about it. It is nothing anti-Christian about it. We need to remember, and I'm going to tell you that reason in just a minute. But anyway, Brother Cameron was the only known survivor of a United States lynching attempt, which occurred when he was 16 years old. When they put that noose around your neck, Brother Earl, it's pretty much over, but not for him. They had someone, thank God Almighty, who actually let them know, take that noose off of his neck. And I thank God. He would have been victimized through a lynching, but I thank God for having someone there to say, give him an opportunity at a fair trial. But 2 of those 3 people I'll talk about were lynched. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But let me open up with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for allowing us a vehicle to discuss these kinds of issues. But we know, Lord, without you, there will not be a Dreammakers 365. Without you, there will not even be an IntellectualRadio.com show. So I ask you, Lord, to bless Brother Earl Winfrey even more, and bless Wanda B. and so many other people who come and sit in these studios day after day. And we thank you for this great work. In Jesus' name, amen. James Cameron was an American civil rights activist. In the 1940s, he founded 3 chapters of the NAACP because he believed in helping Black people who have been victimized in this country for 400 years. This coming August of 2019, we would have been on paper here for 400 years. He also served as the Indiana State Director of the Office of Civil Liberties from 1942 to 1950. In the 1950s, he moved with his family to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where he continued as an activist and started speaking on African American history. In 1988, he founded America's Black Holocaust Museum in the city, devoted to African American history from slavery to the present. At his death, Cameron was the only known survivor in the United States, as I told you earlier, of a lynching attempt, whose occurred when he was 16 years old, suspect in a murder and robbery of a Marion, Indiana man. Two other teenagers were killed by the mob, a spectacle of thousands of people. He was born in February 25th, 1914, in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to James Herbert Cameron and Vera Carter. After his father left the family, they moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and then to Marion, Indiana. When James was 14, his mother remarried. He was arrested, and for the attempting, they tried to lynch him. In August of 1930, when Cameron was 16 years old, he had gone out with two other teenage African-American friends, Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith. They attempted to rob a young man, Claude Dieter. That was wrong. And they killed him. That was wrong. His girlfriend, Mary Ball, was with him and said she had been raped. That was a lie. And Cameron said he ran away before the man was killed. That's critical. Not after, but before the man was killed. The three youths were caught quickly, arrested, and charged the same night with robbery, rape, and murder. The rape charge was later dropped, as I said, as Ball retracted it. A lynch mob broke into the jail where Cameron and two friends were being held. According to Cameron's account, the lynch mob rose from 12,000 to 15,000 at the Grant County Courthouse, where took all three youths from jail. The older two were killed first. Shipp was taken out and beaten and hanged by the bars of the jail window. Smith was dead from beating before the mob hanged both the boys from a tree in the square. Cameron was beaten and a noose was put around his neck before he was hanged. The voice of an identified woman intervened. See there? Saying that he was not guilty. Frank Force, a local sports hero and football All-American from the university, intervened and said, remove that noose from Cameron's neck, saying he deserved a fair trial. So don't tell me what God can't do. He spared one life, and Force escorted the young man to the return to the jail, and Cameron's neck was long scarred from the rope. And so Flossie Bailey, a local NAACP official and state attorney general, worked to gain indictment against the leaders of the mob in the lynchings, but were unsuccessful. No one was ever charged in the murders of Shipp and Smith, nor the assault on Cameron. I'm not surprised. We have countless and countless. We can do 3-4 years of these type shows on just lynchings, okay? But Cameron was convicted at a trial. Now, he was convicted in 1931, and he left before these murders took place. And the people that did all this lynching, they stuck together. And they get angry when black people stick together, but when they stick together, there's nothing wrong with that. We got a problem in America. I'm just telling the truth. God's been good to me, and I ain't going nowhere until the Lord get ready for me. But after he was paroled, he moved to Detroit, Michigan, where he worked at a straw brewery company and attended Wayne State University. And in 1991, Cameron was pardoned, thank God Almighty, by the state of Indiana. And he studied at Wayne State to become a boiler engineer, worked in that field until he was 65. And he continued to study lynchings, race and civil rights in America, trying to teach others. Nothing wrong with that. That was his calling to fulfill. And I thank God for James Cameron. Because of his personal experience, he dedicated his life to promoting civil rights, racial unity, and equality. Did not hold a grudge against white America, and I thank God for that. While he worked in a variety of jobs in Indiana during the 1940s, he founded, again, those 3 chapters of the NAACP. But I want to talk about after an inspired visit with his wife to the Yad Vashem Memorial in Israel. And Israel is the leader, as far as I'm concerned, of remembering where they've come from. Why can't we as Black America? I got some bad news to share in a minute. Cameron founded America's Black Holocaust Museum. It was and still is a Holocaust in America, and we should never forget it. The Jewish people, where we learn so much about them and study about them, they didn't forget, okay? So we should not forget. I want you to remember that. He used material from his collections to documents, to the struggles of African Americans. Just like this young man tonight, Dr. Porter, Leonard Porter, will be talking about how that inspired him to remember our past and talk about how he can share that to our young people. And that's very important. While he first started collecting materials about slavery, he kept it in the basement, working with others to build support for the museum. He was aided by philanthropist Daniel Bader. The museum started, listen, because that's the reason why I'm doing this show tonight. He started as a grassroots effort and became one of the largest African American museums in the country. In 2008, the bad news is this: we got to keep up the fight. They had to close it because of financial problems. But it reopened on Cameron's birthday, February 25th, 2012, as a virtual museum. I thank God for that. So Cameron and his wife had those five children, and he died 2006 at the tender age of 92. And thank God he had so many different awards. I can go on and on and on and list them. Known and interviewed by the BBC, the Dutch and German televisions, Wisconsin Public Television, so many accolades. We thank God for the life of James Cameron. But why Black History Museums? Knowing the past opens the door to the future, the continuing importance of Black History Month. Now, I want you to hear me tonight. You can tell a great deal about a people, a country, by what they deem important enough to remember, to create moments for, what they put in their museum, what they celebrate. Now listen to me. In Scandinavia, there are monuments to the Vikings as a symbol of freedom and the spirit of exploration. In Germany, during the 1930s and 40s, the Nazis celebrated their supposed Aryan supremacy through monument and song. While America traditionally revels in either the Civil War battles or the founding fathers, yet I would suggest that we learn even more about the country, what it chooses to forget, its mistakes, its disappointments, and its embarrassments. In some ways, African American museums is a clarion call to remember, yet it is a call that is often unheeded. Listen to this, my people. In 1988, Smithsonian Institute, about to open an exhibition that included slavery, decided to survey 10,000 Americans, Brother Earl. This is bad news right here. And I can expect this. Unfortunately, the results were fascinating. 92% of white America responded that they felt slavery had little meaning to them. Isn't that something? Those respondents often said, my family, they did not arrive until after the end of slavery. Even more disturbing, now here is the baddest news of them all, or the worst news of them all, if I may use correct English, is that 79% of African Americans expressed no interest, Brother Earl, and some embarrassment about slavery. 79% of us tonight don't give a crap about Black American museums and history. I'll tell you why in a minute. It is my hope that with greater focus and collaboration, Black history museums should and do stimulate discussions about the subject that both divides and they say embarrasses them. That's not true. As a historian that I am, and others said, this person said, I have always felt that slavery is an important African American story because we found ways to survive, to preserve our culture and our families. Slavery is also ripe with heroes, such as the slaves themselves, who ran away, like Harriet Tubman or Denmark Vesey. But equally important are the forgotten slave fathers and mothers who raised families, kept the people alive. And this person says, and I'm not embarrassed by slave ancestors. I am in awe of their strength and their humanity. I would love to see African American community rethink its connection to our slave past. I also think of something that was told. This person said to me, this person, Mr. Johnson, who was a former sharecropper, he was interviewed in Germantown, South Carolina. And he said, though the slaves were bought, they were also brave. Though they were sold, they were also strong. Now, here's the challenge of preserving our culture tonight. Are you listening to me? Whether we like it or not, museums, archives, and libraries not only preserve culture, but they legitimize it. As a result, it is incumbent upon African Americans, and if you don't want to be called African American, Black Americans, to work with cultural institutions to preserve their family photography. And I thank God for my wife who is working on ancestry, the things that I didn't know, family members that I didn't know, even on my mother's side who didn't know her father. And thank God, Brother Earl, through Ancestry.com, we were able to connect with my grandfather on my mother's side, my mother's father, people that I didn't even know. And now we are friends on Facebook. And I hope to God Almighty this year that I can go and see my family members because that's part of our family. While African Americans have few traditions of giving material to museums, and this is not good, it is crucial that more of the Black past make it into American cultural repositories. A good example of this is the Smithsonian Institute. And I'm going to say this, when the National Museum of African American History wanted to mount an exposition to slavery, it found it did not have any objects that describe slavery. That's terrible. So we got a challenge. So the challenge of maintaining our community is very important for all of us on tonight. Now, I'm going to introduce our speaker and take a real quick break and give him a call because I got more questions I thought that I would ask him tonight that I normally would ask 5 questions, but I got a few more questions because I'm very avid about the prospects of museums and things of that nature. So our speaker tonight, our caller rather, is Dr. Porter, Leonard Porter. He was born at the end of World War II when food was rationing to families, ration out to families because of food shortages. He's the 5th child of, I believe, 8 children born to Isaac McHenry and Bedros Maggie Wilson. Memories that have influenced his life were that his daddy would tell him stories about his great-great-grandmother or great-grandmother who was a slave. The story goes on to say that his great-grandmother would work hard in the field all day from sunup to sundown. Are you listening to me? She would go home after work, prepared supper for her very large family, after the slave master reviewed her day's work, and he said that she came up short. And that's what they always said when it came with sharecropping, that we always came up short, never enough for the white man who owned the property. So she went on in the cabin. She was just tired, and she would put salt into the meat to make sure that it would heal for the next day, because see, they didn't have no refrigerators, a lot of the people back then during those times. If they did, they had to get a lot of ice. So what they would do is they call them the salt houses, or you would say put them in those houses and salt that meat all day to make sure that meat would be edible. And they did. But now back to Dr. Porter. After high school, he earned a scholarship to Arkansas Baptist College. He experienced his first real racism when he was arrested at Henderson State University in Arkansas. He was accused and charged with breaking into the school cafeteria to steal food, they said. And he identified as a Negro wearing, as he said, those tinted eyeglasses and wearing red trousers. But anyhow, he went on and moved on up to Chicago and enrolled at the University of Illinois at Chicago studying social work. And he was inducted into the United States Army, deployed into Vietnam. After his military services were over, he enrolled at Governor State University, earned his master's degree in corrective psychology, studied at the Union Institute, and at the university he received his PhD in counseling psychology. He organized the first Black veterans group in the country, Black United Veterans, Veterans of America, chartered member of the National Association for Black Veterans, Vietnam Veteran Leadership Program, founding member of the National Veterans Museum here in Chicago, the Martin Luther King Foundation, where I served with him. He was the first president. I served as a secretary. He's also one of the people that I met when he served as one of the leaders, if not the leaders, of the Deacons and Mother Lines of Kankakee County, Illinois. He worked at Kankakee Community College in psychology as an adjunct professor in that particular study. Juneteenth celebration community council member, founded the MG45 Gallery, Black History You Can Feel, and he's going to be talking about that on tonight. And also the Kwame Soul Band, classical music founder, Mighty Men of God chairman and director, deacon currently at the New Macedonia Baptist Church. He's teaching history, of course, Governor State University, Kankakee Community College, and organizations go on and on with Michael Reese, past president, of course, of the Deacon and Mother Lines, as I mentioned earlier, and the high school board, Dr. King Preschool Center founder, and military history. Of course, he has also some publications with My Prayer Book, Marcus Garvey Speeches, Dr. Margaret, Mother of Black History. He's been married for 47 years and have 2 sons, 5 grandchildren. We're going to go ahead and take a real quick minute break, and then we're going to call Dr. Porter.
Now is the time to prepare our hearts and minds and come before our King, boldly before his throne. I can't hardly wait to come into this blessed place and prepare a sacrifice of praise. Let us go into the house of God. Come Sunday, come and go with me. Come Sunday, there's rest for the weary, you can be free. Come Sunday, lay your burdens down. So come Sunday, we will meet on holy ground. Meet on holy ground. Oh, come Sunday, salvation for the soul in the church. Come Sunday, where the wounded can be whole. Oh, come Sunday, you won't ever be the same. So come Sunday, we will glorify His name. Sunday morning, church bells ringing, the choir singing. It's a beautiful day. Every Sunday morning, I'm Sunday morning ready. Get my coat, where's my Bible? Come on, son, we don't want to be late. It's Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning, I'm Sunday morning ready. Shaking hands with the saints, folks coming from far and near. It's the body of Christ, it's the church. Every Sunday morning, I'm Sunday morning ready. Bishop's preaching the message. It's a message of hope, a message of deliverance.
Dr. Porter, thank you so much for joining us on tonight. We've already talked you up. Very fascinating story about your great-grandmother and about your life, how God has truly been so good to you. And I'm just so thankful that I've had the pleasure of meeting you a long time ago, back in my, I should say, 20s, 28, 29 years old, and how you have grown in such high levels in life. And so we are just so happy you joined us on Dreammakers 365. We've got some questions we want to ask you tonight, and I'll go ahead and get the first question out to you. And that is, tell us, Dr. Porter, what motivated you to get involved in the preservation or the preserving of Black history when it comes to the documents and the exhibits that I saw down there in Kankakee County not too long ago?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on. It is my pleasure. It's certainly a privilege. And likewise, I've known you as you started your adventure way back in been a few years.
Yes.
But I got started when I was a young, I would say a late teen. But I had an interest way before then.
Yes.
When my father used to talk about his family, his grandmother, his great-grandmother, who was a slave,
yes,
and how she used to be treated by her slave master. And I was a little guy then, but that used to intrigue me. I couldn't believe it. And so it just stayed with me over the years. And we didn't have a lot back in growing up in the South, and we spent a lot of time listening to our parents at nights instead of watching television, which we did not have at the time.
Yeah.
We would listen to them. They would talk about their history.
Yes.
And I just got excited about it at some level, but it was more of a curiosity than excitement. And over the years, as it just kind of grown, went away to college, and ran into a really exciting professor who was a historian.
Yeah.
And he talked and talked and talked, and he just added more fuel to my fire. And over the years, it just has kind of evolved.
Yes.
And some things, even today, when I hear about or read about, I kind of already know it because I've heard it, directly from the mouth of my parents.
Yes.
And I would say us family members and other members of the family, they talked about it all the time. And I had an older sister who just had so much knowledge about the past, and we always talk. She's passed away, but we would talk about it all the time. Even before she passed away, she was telling us about her great-great-grandmother that I didn't know, but I feel like I did because she has talked so much about it. But it's just been a interesting, I guess, as pretty much far as I can remember back, it was just interest. And I started collecting.
Yes.
Started collecting way back, even before I went to college in Arkansas. And from that point on, it just kind of evolved. And then people are so generous.
Yes.
They know what you like. And every time they discover something or run across something they think I'll be interested in, they will contact me and let me know.
Yes.
And so from that point on, it just happened.
That's great.
And
yes.
I hope to answer that question.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. We're going to the second question. Very good and thorough, which actually takes me to the second question. So how can these exhibits or those exhibits you have there in Kankakee County, and you can give us information as well as tell us about how the youth today, how they're suffering from an identity crisis. How can your exhibits and the exhibits or museums around this country help these young people? Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, it's been said by so many great people, if you don't know your past, you really can't proceed in your future because you don't know who you are.
There you go.
And the exhibit will definitely give you some ideas what our ancestors, our forebears, our parents, our grandparents have been through, the things that they have accomplished. I'm doing a presentation now on this is the 100th anniversary coming up of Red Summer. Most people don't know about Red Summer.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and tell us about
that. But Red Summer started in 1919 when my dad had told us about this riot that took place in Elaine, Arkansas. And I lived about 30, 40 miles from Elaine, Arkansas, so I knew where it was. We've been there for all kind of activities or passing through it, going to Memphis. And just recently I read that Elaine, Arkansas riot, they call it the Elaine Massacre.
Yes.
It was the worst riot in our nation's history.
Talk about
that. Was 20 miles from my house.
Oh. And
when you study it, it just sends chills to you to know what those people went through, African American, people in America who suffered, suffering for freedom, trying to gain their freedom.
Yes.
And it all started in about the cotton. What really happened was after the Civil War, and a lot of our troops came home from World War I.
Okay.
They had fought in the war. The war had lasted 4 years. It was over. And when they returned home, they came home to a situation that was a lot worse than what they were fighting in.
Yes.
And so it was the worst massacre because American troops, soldiers, came into Elaine, Arkansas, and shot and killed other veterans who had served in the war.
Yes.
During the massacre. That just overwhelmed me. You go on a foreign soil and fight for freedom for your country, and then you come home and your countrymen shoot and kill you or your family.
Isn't that something?
Because you wanted to have equal opportunity, equal rights.
Right. Now I had heard
what was happening.
Go ahead.
Let me say this real quick.
Yes.
The people were leaving the South looking for a better life.
Right.
And they call it the Great Migration. They were just getting out of the South. headed north, and so they ran into all kinds of situations because the people in the north didn't really want you to come take their job. And so it was all over the nation. Oh, there was over 20 riots that occurred between July and October in 1919.
I believe
and
that
they
too.
all had the same beginning,
Right.
Claiming that some black man had done something to some white person,
Right.
and the mob comes in and take them, pull them out of jail,
Amen.
and hang them and lynch them.
That's what we talked
And
about.
it's just unbelievable when we read that and hear what we have today. And then I just have to say, a lot did change, but a lot is going back to what it used to be, or worse than what it used to be.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so
even
true.
as we speak. Even as we speak. So it's just so much. And I think when I am a retired
veteran,
psychology and history professor, but the things that I learned when I was teaching just still overwhelmed me. You can't ever put the book down.
Yes.
And every time you turn a page, there's something more interesting in it and to learn.
Right.
And you just wish you could take that knowledge and put it in our young people's heads so they could just feel some of that.
I know.
But they don't like reading now. And the media, internet, all the what you call the social media, kind of got our young people captivated.
It certainly does.
It's not really. They're not really getting some of the information that really needed because it's being streamed through our social media. But this is an exciting month because it seems like everybody wake up for the month of February. But I've been an advocate for the last 30 years.
That's right.
African American 1 month, as Carter G. Wilson made it 1 week. Right. Then finally it went to a whole month. And it just intrigued me how people of non-African American descent would go and do so much on this month, and then on February the 28th, they put it all down until next year.
They put it down to next year. That's why this show is not called just Dream Makers. It's called Dream Makers 365. Thanks to my in the studio. Got that 365 from Earl Winfrey because we need to be teaching Black history 365 days a year.
Let me share this with you real quickly. I worship at a church in New Macedonia, Missionary Baptist Church in Hopkins Park, Illinois, where we have Black History service every month, every Sunday in February, and every fourth Sunday in the month up until November.
Oh, that is awesome!
Every fourth Sunday is set aside for African American History month. I mean week.
Yes.
In the morning worship service, not an evening service.
That's right.
We dispense with some of the choir singing and cut the announcement back, and
that's right.
And we use about 40 minutes of the morning worship service to teach African American history, and it has a little following. There are some people come only on that Sunday so they can hear.
Yes.
And this whole year coming, we have kind of a theme.
Yes.
And each month we go from one to the other. Then we do activities to go along with it at the end of the end. African Americans love to learn by doing, so we try to act out some of the things during the month. So from April, May, June, July, August, all the way to November.
That's
fascinating. We skip the month of March because we deal with Women's History Month.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Even though we still talk about Black history, but we talk about just general women's history.
That's right.
But this is our third year doing it.
Yes.
And it seems like it's really catching on well.
That's great. That's great.
And I'm excited about it.
Well, great. Great. Let me ask you a couple of more questions here, which are three more questions, actually. Now,
Okay.
your exhibit, I've been there. I have seen some of the wonderful displays there. Can you tell the listening audience about some of the African American items that you have in your exhibit? And mention, of course, where it's located. And again, I've seen those great things there.
Okay, well, it's located at 1501 East Merchant Street in Kankakee, Illinois. We just reopened there on November the 3rd.
Yes.
We've been closed for 2 years as the Kuba Center exhibit. And of course, you know, Kubalan is the first name that our race had way back in the days before it was called Africa.
Amen.
It was called Kubalan.
Thank you.
It seemed that some Europeans went into Africa back in Africano.
Yes.
And they dropped the last part of his name and made it called it Africa.
Look at that.
But the name was Akuna. He also divided the country and started them to fight each other. And even today, there's tribal wars going on.
It certainly is.
And he started that, and because it all started after, before World War One. And I just went to a conference last year, and I was just amazed to find out that World War One was a fight over Africa, the African riches,
okay,
gold, silver, bauxite, all of that.
Yeah.
They
all
were fighting over that.
Yes, yes.
You had all these nations, Russia. That's how World War II was a carry-on of the same thing.
Okay.
If you notice, a lot of the fighting was in North Africa.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
That's because they were trying to figure out how they could who could get the most resources out of Africa.
Out of Africa.
The richest.
Okay.
Even today, the richest country in the world. So our first display is about that history.
Good.
And then from there we go to the title of the display is From Birth of a People to Obama. Mm-hmm. And so everything in between, we have display. We have a sports section.
Yes.
We have some sports figures, people from our sports
like
world.
Willie Mays, you know, like I have the bat. Yeah, the bat of Willie Mays.
Jack Johnson.
Yes.
Who was the first world champion, black world champion.
That's great.
And I went down to Galveston, Texas, where he was born and raised, and went to his museum and went to his birth house.
That's great.
And then I went up north to where he is buried in Chicago.
Yes.
And he's buried in up north, and that was just kind of interesting to know that he paved the way.
Yes, he did.
A little bit different from the way I would have done it, but it worked.
That's right. That's right.
And then we have a super display on Joe Louis, who lived here out in Sun River Terrace, Illinois, out by Chicago.
Yes. And
he got in some trouble, and he moved down to Kankakee, and he stayed here until he passed away.
Yes.
And then we have, of course, I have a whole room dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
And his legacy. And actually, that's kind of how we got started, trying to keep his legacy alive.
Yes.
And we started collecting. But just have to say this to the audience. I had the privilege of meeting Dr. King in Chicago at Mount Pisgah Baptist Church on King Drive.
Yes.
And he preached a sermon, and it wasn't a rally. It was a regular church service, and he preached a sermon. I was so impressed, and got a chance to talk to him, shook his hand, and that was the following year. He was he passed away. He was killed. He was assassinated.
Killed. That's right.
And as one of the news commentators said the other week, that Dr. King gave his life for the cause. And I wanted to call the TV station and say he didn't give his life; they took his life.
That's right. That's right.
He was not
Thank
the
you.
only person gave their life was Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Thank you. Thank you
But
for
he
sharing
gave it,
that.
but Dr. King was life was snuffed away as he was in the prime of his work
Amen.
and his
That's
mission.
Right. That's right.
So I have a whole collection on him and some really neat items that I went down to the Dr. King Center in Atlanta, Georgia, and took pictures, and happened to be the day we went down, we met Mrs. Coretta King and Daddy King and their son. They were there that day, so we had a chance to talk to them.
Oh, very
and it was a great moment. And she was so kind. And Daddy King, he just a charm.
Oh, wow.
And we got a chance to see who was in the church.
Sure was.
And we saw the memorial, and the story was basically some demented white man with a gun, the Lord's Prayer, as the choir was marching in.
That's right.
And he shot her on the organ. And so that was kind of hairy, to see that, to hear that.
That's right.
But they have a memorial there for her. But and I understand that memorial is in a little. The federal government has taken it over some kind of way.
Wow.
I'm not 100% sure how that happened, but when we had to shut down the other week, people were not able to.
Oh, yes.
Even on during the time when you have the most tourists coming in, I guess they were not able to see it because of the federal
shutdown. Yes, that's so true.
But anyway, that's one of my favorite spots.
That's great.
And then I have to say my favorite of favorite.
All right.
I moved to Chicago back in the late 60s, 69 and 70, and I met Miss Dr. Margaret Taylor Burrow.
Oh.
And went and visited with her. And she had never seen me before, but I knew a little bit about her. But I knew about the museum, the DeSable Museum. So I went there, and she greeted me as she knew me from way back. And I told her I was interested in the museum. She said, "Well, start your own."
Oh, look at that.
She said, "Start your own." And I'm so proud to say that when I had in 2009, when I opened my museum up, my gallery, my museum, she came down and cut the ribbon.
Look at that. That's a proud
moment. She did cut the ribbon. And she told me she'll be back within a year to see how I was doing. And we know that she passed away just before the year was up.
Yeah.
She passed away in October, and she was coming back down in December.
Oh, wow.
And but her spirit is there. I have some original, and I do have something that's so special. She wrote a book, and she gave it to me that day. That I have it on display, and I have her first this book that she wrote called the Drumming Boy.
Yeah.
And then I have lots of other artifacts from her, and and she gave me about 25 paintings, and I have them on display.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So it's a great. And then I have my Juneteenth display.
That's right.
Actually, that's why I went to Galveston, Texas, to study Juneteenth, and that's when I discovered that about in Galveston, the history of it is so powerful.
Wow.
Like how black folks went to Galveston, Texas, and they didn't have a lot of trouble with the people in Texas. Galveston at that time was not a part of Texas. It was an island, Galveston Island.
Yeah.
And so, it became a part of Texas later. But I was impressed with how black folk were so successful that a lot of our fraternities and sororities started in Galveston. Right. But what happened was, they didn't find out about the Emancipation Proclamation till 2.5 years later.
That's right.
And when they did, I went to the very spot where it was read, and when they went to hurl themselves in the street, dancing and celebrating, from the moment they heard it until into the night and to the next day. So June 19th, And I grew up knowing that June 19th was a special day, and we called it Emancipation Day back in Arkansas. But I didn't know the history behind it. But we did celebrate it back in when I was a young lad. But today it's our oldest African American holiday. They started June 19th. 1865.
1865. Look at that.
It's the oldest black holiday, and just tell the audience that we have three major black holidays that we have to commemorate and celebrate. We have Juneteenth. So the very first one is Kwanzaa. And Dr. King's birthday.
That's right.
National holiday.
Yes.
1986, it became a national holiday.
Amen. Sure
and then we have Juneteenth. So those are our three basic black holidays. And we have to commemorate and celebrate those days.
That's right.
But it's been a great journey, and I just feel like the best way to express some of this information that you have to come and see.
Yeah.
Come and see. Because you're going to have lots of questions, and I can talk more and more and more. But what I am doing now, I'm training some young, I call them millennial young people in their 30s and 20s, teaching them how to give the tour of the gallery.
Yes.
Because I discovered since I opened in November, I just talk, and I'll be tired out from talking. So I'm teaching them how to give the tour guides. Because people have lots of questions. We got to pass it on.
Got to.
And so
that's so
and
true.
They're excited about it. And so this summer, I'm hoping to have some interns, some funding to have some interns, paid interns, to come and learn about the history and how to teach it.
That's right.
Because you don't have to be a licensed teacher to teach information to your associate and your friend, and your best audience, your best student body is your family.
That's right.
You teach them, and then after you teach them how to spread it to someone else.
That's right.
But the gallery is open from 10 a.m. to 3, Monday through Saturday for the month of February, and then after February it's going to be open Monday through Friday and Saturday. We're gonna have activities on Saturday, so it'll be open, but we're not. It's not a regular open time. But it's going well.
That's great.
The crowd is trickling in. Word is getting around.
That's great.
And but it's there.
All right.
And there is no cost.
That's great.
Just
that's great. Let me ask you a final question because our time is ticking. You well in your delivery.
I'm a talker. I love it.
I love it. How can a person, again, donate any of the artifacts to the exhibit? What can they do?
Donate artifacts to the exhibit.
Okay.
Well, I'm interested now. I'm real choosy and picky now because I got so much.
Okay.
I want something that's authentic, something of interest, and it has to be about African Americans.
Got you. And I do have your phone number, Doc, if you don't mind me giving that to someone who is interested.
Go right ahead.
Well, great.
Yeah, the bill is paid, and I'll answer it. And if you got something, tell me about it.
Well, thank you so much. All right.
I want to say this. I'm looking for things that you can put your hand on and pick up and look at.
All right.
And hold in your hand because you got to touch it.
Thank you so much. My music is on, and I thank God for you. We're happy that you joined us, Dr. Porter. We'll have you on again soon in the summer months around Juneteenth, and I'll be in touch with you, okay? God bless you.
Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful night.
You too. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bless you.
You've been listening to Dr. Porter, and join us next week as we have our 3rd or 4th shows for Black History Month. Our shows are always brought to you by My Full of Beauty Incorporated, my friend, Mr. Martin Casey, president of My Full of Beauty. We thank you and wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your Black History Month. God bless you.
To come into this blessed place and prepare